Call the meeting to order. It is 6:01 p.m., September 10th, and I ask that everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Can the clerk provide the roll call?
Commissioner Cullinan.
Here.
Commissioner Donnelly.
Present.
Commissioner Mizuraka.
Aye.
Commissioner Tolbert.
Here.
Chair Izetta.
Present.
And let the record show that Vice Chair Roush is not present.
Call for any changes to the agenda from the commission. Call for any public comment. Call for a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
I'll motion that we approve the agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Cullinan. Commissioner Donnelly.
Yes.
Commissioner Mizuraka.
Aye.
Commissioner Tolbert.
Yes.
Chair Izetta.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. It is recommended that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Under state law, matters presented under this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the Parks and Recreation and Open Space Commission at this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to make comments at the time the items comes up for committee consideration. Upon being acknowledged by the chair, please step to the podium and speak to the microphone. Begin by stating and spelling your name.
No, I took the last parking spot. Drove around a couple of times.
All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the committee, staff, or public request specific items to be removed for separate action. Item 3.1, receive minutes of the regular meeting on June 11th from Cathy, Martindale.
Sorry. You just need, it's consent. I must have missed that on here. Sorry. Just call for a motion and a second. And any public comment or public comment, motion, second, and then we'll do a vote.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Call for a motion and a second to approve this.
To approve the consent calendar.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Cullinan. Commissioner Donnelly.
Yes.
Commissioner Mizuraka.
Aye.
Commissioner Tolbert.
Yes.
Chair Izetta.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
And now we move to receive the minutes of the regular meeting from June 11th.
No, that was what
That
was the
it?
consent
Okay.
calendar was.
Now we're just going to regular calendar, Parks
Correct.
and Recreation? Okay.
Correct.
So, item 4.1, review tree removal permits. Ashley, the first tree removal permit is Natalina Court 19330.
Yes. Do I need to present this right now? They can see this. Okay, perfect. So we have 3 tree removal permits for today.
So the first one is not 19330 Natalina Court. Applicant is requesting the removal of a moderate-sized oak tree in the front yard. The applicant mentioned that this is a volunteer tree. It just kind of sprouted in the front yard. It wasn't intentionally planted. The canopy blocks the solar panels, which impact their ability to function. Additionally, the nearby sidewalk is beginning to raise, and the location of the trunk and corresponding roots are on top of the two water lines. So the recommendation for today is to review the tree removal permit, so the arborist report site plan, and provide some input in terms of whether or not you would like to approve or deny the tree removal permit. Got some photos here included in the arborist report. This is the tree here. And this is the site plan.
That's a big volunteer.
It's been there for a while, is my understanding. But as you can see, Mr. Meserve wrote the arborist report for the applicant and is also here tonight, so answer any questions as well.
So it seems like there's conflicting pieces in here. The arborist is saying it's in good health, but the letter is saying it is not in good health. Is that correct? When we scroll down to the bottom, or is this the second?
The second one is not in good health.
Got it, okay. First one is in good health.
Does John Meserve have a recommendation?
I didn't specifically make a recommendation on this one. I was going to leave that up to you folks. This is not as severe a situation as a lot of the trees we look at. The tree's not currently blocking the solar panels, but he has to prune it regularly to keep it from doing that. I think that's his main concern is he's having to prune the tree every year to keep it from reducing the output of the panels. It's not one we've really come up with before, so.
Yeah, I see a lot of roof space there. I wonder if it's possible to move the solar panels.
Possibility, and we're trying to save trees.
I personally think this falls back into, we don't have a policy for the replacement tree piece or the funds. If we remove it, we're still in this like limbo area.
Well, what you could do is a lot of these replacement trees, with the trees that are being removed are trees that are, planted, like say, for example, in a sidewalk planter, they're not really meant for that space. And so, you could approve the removal and require a replacement tree in the same area that just maybe is never going to get as tall. That won't prevent the solar panels, or another type of replacement tree. I mean, if he removes the tree and plants a replacement tree, it'll be a long time before the canopy impacts the solar panels. So, just a thought.
Well, with the limited information we have, I would be declined to deny the request without further information.
I would like to make a comment that obviously they place the solar panels on the best part of the roof. So the other sides face different directions and aren't going to be as effective. You know, you see the pitches of the roofs. And I agree with that this is one of those issues. But if the guy is pruning it every year, that seems like kind of punitive to, you know, put him in that position because it's really expensive to prune trees. So if he's willing to put another tree in, I would support that.
Is there any policy right now around trees that have sprouted versus planted?
Yeah, that would be a no. And just a couple other things I'd add in here. If we do put a tree back in this space, which I think would be possible, oaks tend to grow big, they tend to grow tall, and they grow slow also. But at the same time, we've got the consideration of the two water lines. And we scrolled past the two pictures that show the house on the left of the tree has a water line service right there. And the house on the right has a water line service right there within probably 5 to 10 feet of the trunk of the tree. So I think that if you found the right tree, it could work in this space, especially if it wasn't destined to be a tall tree, one of the smaller, lower trees like we have in our tree guidelines that Commissioner Mizuraka helped put together that pretty much details trees that go underneath power lines. I would think that might be a candidate, one of those types, to have a healthy life in a space like this.
John, do you have any recommendations of size and or tree types that you would recommend in that area?
Our tree list has some really nice, small stature trees. And I think that's what we're looking at, something that doesn't get more than 20, 25 feet. And I think there's a number of nice trees, accent trees that would fit that bill. So I think that probably wouldn't be an unreasonable replacement for this larger tree.
Do we give them the option if they want to not put a tree back in to pay back to the city, or is that still an option, or is that not on the table right now?
I don't think it's set up. As far as we know, it's not set up.
But
Unless
it's technically.
You mean the
right.
cash in lieu fee?
Yeah.
You know as well.
Can we suggest they put a tree there? Because there's not a lot of tree space in that neighborhood, right, on that cul-de-sac because of the design.
So is the commission in agreement that we recommend replacing it with a tree in the small size of on our recommended list? The removal, if that is the case.
I don't think we can force them to pick from the list. It's a recommended list, not required.
Okay.
Unless I'm mistaken.
No, you can. It's an approved list, so you can state, and in our code it specifically talks to the list. So you can say specifically, your recommendation is to choose from that master tree list, and specifically small stature, so with that good placement. And John can help them with that if John wrote the report earlier.
Through the chair, we do require barriers, right? And the root barriers for the trees.
I'm not sure what our detail shows, but this is not in a planter strip. This tree is set back 15 feet or so. So there's room in that front yard for a tree that doesn't get too big without barriers.
The barriers would still force it down, which, because of the concern with the water lines, which are more shallow, the barriers are 18 or 24 inches. So you could request a deeper barrier, and that would prevent the roots from going out, they go down.
Yeah, the water lines are on both sides of the property line, which is where this tree came up. So I think there is room in the rest of the front yard for a tree without that kind of conflict. It's a fine recommendation. Root barriers generally do a good job. So you can include that in your recommendation.
So can I recommend a motion? Yep. I recommend removal of the oak tree and replacement with an appropriate size tree with root barriers in the front yard. From our list.
I second.
Commissioner Cullinan,
Aye.
Commissioner Donnelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Mizuraka,
No.
Commissioner Tolbert,
Yes.
Chair Izetta.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 4-1-1.
Next on the tree removal permits is 404 Montini Way. The recommendation is to approve the tree removal or require a tree replacement. And we have it in front of us.
Here we've got the arborist report. This, the arborist noted that the tree was in relatively poor condition. I believe that somewhat differs from Mr. Meserve's review of the tree when he went out to take a look at it. However, it is still causing some sidewalk displacement, and it's recommended to be removed.
Just an observation. I live not too far from Montini Way, and I walk my dog frequently. And this is just the tip of the iceberg for this neighborhood. It's lots of sycamore trees, and this is just the first of many of requests that are going to be for tree removals.
And just to clarify, Commissioner Tolbert, is that due to sidewalk displacements?
Yeah, again, I think it's the situation of the 3-foot strip just being woefully inadequate for trees.
John, you're talking about a sycamore?
So I looked at this site, but I looked at one of the sycamores that Charlie's talking about. Yeah, London Plain, but he's talking about Trident Maple. And the pictures, he's looking at decay in the trunk, not sidewalk displacement. So we looked at two different situations. I don't disagree with this, but they're different.
Hey, John?
Yes.
You just said you recommend sycamore?
Not me.
Oh,
well, in the right place.
you were reading it.
In
You
the
were
right
reading it.
place, sure, but not in a planter strip.
Don't sycamores have lots of detritus?
They're messy.
Yeah.
So Ashley and I were just talking. There's some confusion. I looked at a tree at 404 Montini that's in the planter strip that Charlie's talking about. that was lifting the sidewalk. It was a fairly significant sized sycamore. This report that you have is, I don't know that these are in the planter strip as a different species completely, and he's asking for removal for a different reason. So I'm not sure what you do with that.
So do we think you reviewed the wrong tree and this report is requesting a different tree removal, or do you think he's trying to remove the other tree that you reviewed?
I have no idea which one was, do you know, can you give us some?
Yeah, so they're specifically requesting the removal of the trees here. I think there was just a miscommunication when Mr. Meserve went out to take a look at it and unfortunately reviewed not the tree that's part of this arborist report. So what we can do is maybe have postpone the approval of the tree removal permit pending a report from Mr. Meserve. We could do that.
I mean, I'm fine with this report on these trees. I think the pictures describe what's going on just fine. So I'd be okay with going ahead with, these are the correct trees and mine wasn't the correct tree. I'm fine with going ahead with this. With tree removal and replacement, yes.
Or, Mr. Reserve just weighed in and we can utilize that. So then no reason to delay, which are, probably be beneficial for the homeowner.
I call for a motion.
I put that on. So the tree is really quite sick there and it's not going to recover. So I propose that we approve the removal and suggest a replacement with an appropriately sized tree that will grow in the area.
I second.
Commissioner Cullinan,
Yes.
Commissioner Donnelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Mizuraka.
No.
Did you say no? Sorry. Okay, it cut out. Commissioner Tolbert,
Yes,
Chair Izetta.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 4-1-1.
Next on the tree removal permits, 697 Avenue del Oro. The recommendation is to approve the removal of the trees and require replacement trees.
I do want to mention this particular application arborist report. They want to do some exploratory removal of well, not exploratory, but they want to remove the driveway. So what's happening here is that the trees are in this front parcel and they are causing pretty significant displacements and abruptions in the neighboring person's driveway. They want to redo their driveway. They want to see if root pruning is possible, but they didn't want to delay the possibility of removing the trees by 3 months for the next pros meeting. So this is kind of like a tree removal permit if they need it. If they don't need it, the owner is very interested in keeping the trees. So I just want to let you know that those are conversations that I've had with the owner as we kind of work to get this in as a last minute tree removal permit. We just wanted you to review this and make a recommendation. There is a possibility that not all of the trees will be removed. They do want to save the trees if possible with root pruning.
Yeah, sorry. This is our friend, the redwoods. We've looked at lots of them. I mean, they might be able to do some root pruning, but there's large roots in that driveway. I mean, there's a lift that the neighbors can't drive over it anymore. It's so high. So the chances of saving those trees and the future problem that's going to be there again, and I think they're probably best just to take them out. But that's up to them.
I'll make a motion to approve the request with the appropriate replacement tree from the approved list.
I second.
Commissioner Cullinan,
Yes.
Commissioner Donnelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Mizuraka,
No.
Commissioner Tolbert,
Yes.
Chair Izetta.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 4-1-1.
Item 4.2, receive an update on the tree priorities list and discuss the potential for a future joint commission meeting.
Yes, we're going to hand this over to our wonderful community development director who is here for our pros meeting.
Well, I don't get that introduction in my own commission meetings. Yeah, I do. Oh, I want mine up, sorry. Let's get it to work. There we go. All right. So, this came to my attention. Ashley reached out to me and asked a little bit more about this. This predates, our history on this predates Ashley joining us, so she didn't know exactly what we had done already. And so we put together a quick little staff report, and I'm here to talk a little bit more about what we decided back then and where we're at. So I cannot remember, I want to say all of you were on the commission a year and a half ago, right? So we first met in 2024 early on, and I held joint meetings between Planning Commission, you all, and the Climate Action Commission in this space. We were all squished in here, loving each other. And at that meeting, we talked a lot about trees. We had, I think, 2 big meetings. So one, we came up with initial ideas, and then the second one, I proposed a list of our priorities. And so that is what was attached to your staff report that you have today. I also had provided a link to our meetings that we had held back then. So with that, I am going to go over our list that we had created. So these are the proposed priorities that we had agreed to at that meeting. Nothing really changed and from our discussions. And one topic was education. We had first talked about we really need to educate our community about the importance of trees and then how to also take care of them. That was one of the key things. A lot of the tree removals are coming up because people don't know that they need to prune them or how to prune them or how to work with your neighbor to have them prune their tree so that it doesn't affect you. Also, what's suitable where. So all these topics we had talked about, and I had suggested at the time, which I don't believe anything's been created from this ad hoc, but I don't know because I wasn't involved after this point with pros. But one of the recommendations was to create an ad hoc committee to lead the effort in identifying education opportunities and providing material for website updates and materials to share. So that was one recommendation. So that is an opportunity, if you have not started that, for you all to create and discuss more. Another was talking about, again, tree planting and maintenance strategy, developing that materials to assess homeowners, and then also pursue funding for implementation and planting of our trees. We had talked about the Cool Corridor grant. We've talked about a Milwaukee forest. We also talked more about creating an Arbor Day event, things like that, and then how to go after grants for actual physical trees and the maintenance of those trees so that they live after we plant them. So again, working with an ad hoc committee on education could be one on planting and maintaining, or it could be one same ad hoc, really focused on that. Enforcement of replacement. This has been an ongoing discussion on our current code. We need to modify the code. I had recommended at the time of let's kind of check some early boxes and then do an urban forestry management plan. An urban forestry management plan helps us identify what our needs are so that we can correctly identify what policies we want to put into place, what penalties we want to put in place, and what incentives we want to put into place. So that's the main purpose of an urban forestry management plan. Also helps us with, updating the list. We're going to get to the list in a second, but updating that master tree list, and updating the code as a whole, because we all are in agreement, the entire tree ordinance section needs an overhaul. But we really needed to understand what we had. And so I'll get to that part in just a second. Again, plant appraisals and incentives for planting and maintenance of our heritage trees on private property. Technically, we only have one heritage tree so far. We had the second one that I brought to you guys that did not go forward to completion with City Council. That is a discussion that I'll have with the new Parks Director about how we want to do this heritage tree program moving forward. It's a lot of assumed responsibility by a city under our current code with a heritage tree. It basically says we take ownership of that tree. The other is in regards to, we identified that we needed some more regulations and policies. One was to do an urban tree inventory and canopy study. We did the RFP, we got the funding for it, and we kicked that off. And that is getting ready to get started. You'll see an announcement. It'll get started basically the end of September, beginning of October. And we should have it all prepared for us by the end of the year. Before the end of the year, we'll probably be taking it forward to City Council. We do have planned to bring it to you all, as well as to do kind of a community thing around it. So with that, we've hired Planet Geo to complete that work, and we have paid for the geo database that goes with that. And so we can make that accessible to the community. And it'll actually inventory all the trees that are within the public right-of-way and our public parks, not Montini Preserve, because that's just kind of overkill, and not our cemetery. And then also the first 10 to 15 feet of a front yard, but we cannot walk into somebody's private yard, so we'll be doing it from the public right-of-way. And so some of the information will be guesstimates. And then also, as part of that process, it'll identify what trees, it'll identify all the health of those trees and recommendations on if some of these trees actually need to be removed and there's conflicts occurring. And then we can also take that information and help inform our future city tree list. We went through the effort, was that last year that we did the master tree list update? End of last year? Yeah, and then we brought that to City Council, got their approval, and so that's been up, but I know that we wanted to work more on that. And so after we get the inventory and the canopy study, understand what trees are doing well here, then we'll be able to maybe focus more on that as well. A tree removal and replacement policy ordinance. This goes back to my earlier discussion about we really need to do the urban forestry management plan or something like that, and help us identify what the goals are of that. How do we know that we want to redo our ordinance, but other than wanting to preserve more trees, what else about that do we want to do? How do we want to regulate that? We're also, we need to update the heritage tree ordinance, and then the safety and enforcement policy around trees, sidewalks, the whole 9 yards. Let's see, I'm gonna go down a little bit more. We already moved the arborist to a contract position with the city, right there, and took him off your pros commission, and enroll his help in all things trees. Whether you see them or not, we also have a lot of trees that we work with Mr. Meserve on. The sustainability coordinator part-time contract position, I'm working with our new parks director, Jans, on what that looks like, and hopefully get that out this week or next week when our HR director comes back from vacation. And then as part of our conversations, we had identified potential partners to work with, especially as part of that educational component. Maybe they already have a lot of those resources, or we want to partner with them to help promote our goal of preserving trees in our community. And so how do we best utilize those relationships moving forward? With that, we would
obviously need to update our website and reach out to them. Your ad hoc committees can utilize outside knowledge to help inform where you're going. The regulation is more about you all and how many of you sit on an ad hoc committee. So, I do have potentially some funds left over from the tree inventory and canopy study because I did a larger request. So that could help contribute to an urban forestry management plan or hopefully cover the entirety of it. So after we get the inventory and canopy study and kind of have an idea, do we need to do a full-blown one or can we do a version of one? I think we still need to hire outside assistance to help us develop what that looks like. And that's it for my side of it. And so now I am here to hear kind of what your goal was by having this agenda item, other than just an update, if there were some specific things that were missing or some concerns.
Any questions from the commission?
I'll go first. I was involved with the Joint Tree and Commission over the years, and I have a way of thinking about this too. I appreciate what you put together for us, but you know, this table was from the last, as you said, met in February 2024. What happened after that was that we applied for a California CAL FIRE grant, which was a cross-commission grant proposal to develop a forest management urban canopy plan for the city. We didn't get the grant in August, so then we sort of been in limbo since that. But the encouraging thing is that we've had this contract for the tree inventory canopy study that you say is coming due. And so my sense of how we should proceed with this is that we should go to, in this list that we put together, we should really start with the R1 and R2, which is the tree inventory canopy study and the urban forest management plan. And so if Planet Geo is doing the plan for us, they have their advertisement here, they do in their consulting services, they do tree inventory and risk assessment, urban tree canopy analysis, canopy goal setting, and urban forest management master plans. So my sense is that all these other smaller ad hoc projects really are going to be informed and framed by an urban forest management plan. If we just start going off in different directions and not have the urban forest management plan, at least something that we can work with as a draft, it'll be much more efficient for all of us to have that framework. So I'm wondering, when we meet with the Planet Geo on the inventory canopy study, would it be possible for the cross-commission people to reconvene when they meet? Because they're going to give us some assessment of what they think the deficiencies are in our canopy. They've done management plans for other cities, so what I'm thinking is they could give us a few templates of good urban forest management plans from other cities. Petaluma, Windsor come to mind. I know John has spoken highly of the Windsor. So instead of us trying to reinvent that, or we could look at, and there's also just templates of urban forest management plans that have all these elements in this table in them. So it seems to me that it would be easier and less burdensome if we start with adopting or looking at some of the current state-of-the-art urban forest management plans, use that, and then decide then convene the cross-tree commission and see how they want to do this, and then do the ad hocs. The ad hocs should be cross-commission again, not just a pros commission. So that's my perspective of how I think the most efficient way for the staff and as well as for the commissioners is to operate, to see if we can't start with getting a draft of an urban forest management plan, samples of other cities, and then see how we want to go back to this table and reorganize it. Thank you.
I can respond or I can wait till everybody. Okay, so I don't disagree. I think there are some small low-hanging fruit if you guys want to do something right now that you can do, because I can't promise that urban tree canopy study will be done by X date. I have asked them, I want it all done by the end of the year. That's what I have given them. And then that way I'll know how much money I have left for sure. That being said, I agree. We can do a joint meeting of those three same commissions when we have the draft ready before we go to council, get a joint commission meeting and have the recommendation so that when they do their approval of the final documents that, you know, you guys have reviewed them and you understand them. So we can do that. Probably will be around November, and we'll do a special meeting for that. We'll figure out the when of that. So we can do that. Highly recommend, yes, look up urban forestry management plans. I think I had attached them in the beginning too, at the very beginning when we started talking about this last year. As some examples, I have that one as well, and some other cities. And obviously I came from a city that was big into it, which is why I even knew what it was. But there, I don't know that the reason why I say hire a consultant to help us is I don't know that we have staff capacity to actually write the whole document. And plus we don't really we have one arborist, but other than that, we're not all tree people. And so arborists, I think, are the best to help us kind of define that. We'll help write all the ordinances because that's what we do. But as far as help us identify what those goals and what those policies are and what they look like, they're going to be the most knowledgeable about that. And like I said, I have some money left over, so. But I mean, hopefully by the end of this fiscal year, we'll have at least something going on an urban forestry management plan or some sudden idea of that, some piece of that.
I just want to say that I agree with John. It's a little confusing about the ad hoc mentions, that it doesn't, I mean, you said you guys can create an ad hoc, but in deference to the other commissions, I think it probably ought to be a joint tree commission ad hoc type scenario. In part because I know every time I talk to someone from another commission on a casual basis, there's so much information that needs to be shared with each other.
I don't see a reason why you guys can't take the lead, since this is really in your commission's direction. So your commission is responsible for this, not these other commissions, except Planning Commission has a role when it comes to development, but that's trees overall. And Climate Action obviously is interested in the sustainability component, greenhouse gas, climate adaptation, all those fun things. There are certain things that I think you can take the lead on and identify, because that's not things in more of their warehouse, like what's suitable where, planting and care, tree planting and maintenance and things like that, those kinds of helpful guides and materials. Their interest is going to be more in, Planning Commission is going to be more in the ordinance itself, and then Climate Action in the big picture of sustainability. I already have one in Climate Action talking about carbon sequestration, and as a bigger picture group. And then I do not have one in Planning Commission. We are really focused on the general plan right now.
So to be clear, is there anything prohibiting us from having a joint meeting with a couple pros commissioners and a couple Climate Action?
We would have to hold a meeting. We would have to call a meeting for that. Staff would need to organize that. Because
I can say that when we were working on after we were working on the master tree list,
mm-hmm.
there is at least one or two arborists on Climate Action, or arbor aware, and it would have been great to have them chime in as well. Just restart my computer. And so anytime we want to bring in two commissions together, even if it's not a quorum and not a Brown Act violation, it has to be a public meeting.
It doesn't necessarily need to be a public meeting, but we need to have a meeting to discuss who is going to be in that room and who is going to represent. Because that's kind of the difference is, let's say you guys talk off, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But once you start all talking together, right, that's a quorum. So same with my group, if they do the same thing. So they don't represent the commission unless the commission identifies them to have that discussion. So if your commission doesn't identify specific people in charge of that discussion, you shouldn't be having that discussion because you
No,
don't
that-
represent the commission. So that's why I'm saying you can't just
Yeah.
say, oh, I'm going to have a meeting with so-and-so and we're going to talk about this.
I get it. Yeah, that sounds right, and I understand what you're saying. So does that mean that can we do any of this communication outside of but in a public? Is there any way for us to
Through staff.
so through staff we can potentially create a cross-commission ad hoc?
Yes, with
Okay.
our participation, just to make sure that
Great.
the commissions have identified the people that are going to participate and things
Mm-hmm.
like that.
The other thing I was going to comment on is that I agree with you that there are a few things here that don't need to wait, like planting and care, maintenance, things like that should be pretty global. So I do agree on that because we don't know when the urban forest management plan is coming through, and so I'm just agreeing on that.
And the enforcement of the replacement, if I am remembering correctly, since, I can't remember, since we've started using OpenGov, we have added into the workflow a replacement checkoff before completing the actual permit. And so I believe that Public Works has identified an individual to go make sure that that replacement is actually installed before we can close the permit.
Does that include the replacement if they don't want to replace the tree, the payment?
So far, in the time that we've been processing tree removal permits, no one has reached out requesting to pay as opposed to plant a new tree. Most of the people that come for tree removal permits and get them approved are happy to plant replacement trees. So I haven't had that discussion, but I believe that is an option if they decided not to plant that tree. I have not crossed that bridge yet. People have been planting their replacement trees as required.
The other issue is closing out the permit upon enforcement or upon verification that they've planted the tree. But isn't there something, I have to look back in it, isn't there something about they have to keep the tree alive for a while?
5 years.
Okay, so that should be part of our enforcement
So
parameters.
that would be something that we would need to work in and figure out as far as the whole process. But yes, it is a 5-year, and if they don't, they have to pay. There is a penalty in there. I think it's 5 years. Don't quote me.
I'd like to double back a little bit. Again, please understand, what I'm suggesting is that not that the staff be asked to write a management plan. That's what I'm saying. Can we, when the Planet Geo gives us the inventory canopy study, I would like to see a cross-commission meet with that group to hear their assessment and their recommendations and maybe tease out where they would recommend some good examples, templates of urban forest management plans that we could use as a draft, and then go to work on it and see how we actually want to rewrite our own at some point. But what we learned over the last year or so when we worked on the Cal Fire grant, as well as the Green and Blue Links infrastructure plan, that we were working in our separate silos, and we said that we really need to have more cross-communication. So I think this is an excellent opportunity with this study coming in from the inventory canopy study for us all to meet and regroup and get a sense of how we best divide ourselves up into ad hocs to go forward with this. So that's my request, that we set that up.
And I said that in
Yeah.
November,
Mm-hmm.
we'll bring, if that's the date, that somewhere in November, I think that we'll have a draft of the canopy study and the inventory, and we can have you guys as one of those presentations that basically we'll be doing, but with Planet Geo.
I second what you just said. And so potentially in this November meeting, can we create ad hocs?
That's a possibility, but we can discuss. Let's see where we get, see what you guys are understanding, and then we can go from there.
Okay, I mean, I'd almost like to see more joint tree commissions than less. Just on kind of a little more, even bi-yearly, so that we can all kind of keep the juices flowing and the information flowing.
Does it make sense to form an ad hoc tonight? Because when's our next meeting, this commission, is it January?
December.
December. So November, December, that's not too big of a delay, so.
Right, so November, it would be a joint meeting in which we would present the information to you, and then we can discuss at that meeting if there's interest to have such a joint ad hoc. And then if in the meantime that you guys want to form an ad hoc for any of this, then you guys, the chair, can identify who they would like, or you guys can agree on that to help implement this. So I think we put that in the agenda too, to talk about that.
So I have kind of a weird question. It seems like waiting till the urban forest evaluation is done, because then all these other education and planting and maintenance, there will be examples for people in the community to see successful or unsuccessful tree care, all that other stuff, and it would bring it home. You know, we could have all these are pretty straightforward plans that people, professionals do, but bringing it to the community so they can see in their community how people have been successful. I think that is one thing that I think would move us forward faster, rather than just kind of like have a picture of a tree and you should do this, That's just my suggestion. So that means waiting till the next meeting.
Any other thoughts from the commission? Any call for any public comment? Apologies. I personally am feeling like this is a little convoluted. We could just talk in circles about this all night. I don't have a true opposition to an ad hoc today versus in November. I don't feel like we have the information to move forward with an ad hoc today. It would just be talking about the same agenda items that we have in front of us right now. So my personal thoughts are waiting until the November piece, but I do think there are some areas, even on the education stance, of can we collect materials of what we want to have on our website, what sort of planting and care things that we could update, identifying any community outreach and education efforts, like those types of things, where we could move forward with those today and start gathering those resources and creating a compiled list of these types of things. But I do think a lot of these, like the enforcement of replacement, we're going to talk in circles about that for the next, year. We've been doing this for a year, so I don't think there's a true guidance on that right now, and we haven't figured out a true cap on the amount of money if someone wants to do it in lieu. There's a lot of pieces in the air right now, so I do think there are some ad hocs that are needed to define this, but I don't know if it's just one. So I think we are still missing a key piece of how do we, from inception to completion and putting this in pen to paper, who is going to be the owner of driving that forward. If that's Commissioner Jans, that's wonderful, but I'm still missing that piece of who is the owner of that. Whether it's me, then I'm not completely sure if I'm the right person for it.
So I think in terms of like a path forward, Jennifer had mentioned earlier, if you want to work on something, the low-hanging fruit, like the maintenance, the what stuff do you want on the website, that kind of, all of that can happen independent of the ordinance overhaul, which needs to be done. and can be driven by a lot of the policy documents that she is working on as part of her tree inventory. So you're right, there are pieces missing in terms of you can't move forward with all of this because, you know, part of it is generating some of this information, but you can do some of them. So if you wanted to establish an ad hoc and discuss tree care and maintenance materials to be posted on the website, that's something that you can do as part of the education outreach. Just highlighting that one. So I guess it kind of depends on what the commission's appetite is in terms of moving some of these things, which don't necessarily need to happen with an ad hoc or a joint committee ad hoc. They can happen with a pros ad hoc, and then you are welcome to invite other people. They just can't, if you want them to serve as, like, you know, a commissioner from the CAC, that needs to be identified, but, you know, previously. Or, you know, you're also welcome to invite other people from the community to be on your ad hoc as well.
John, if we have an ad hoc that looks at proper maintenance and planning maintenance and care of these tree replacements, I assume that you would have a pretty good idea what it would be like. So would we be just meeting with you? An ad hoc would meet with you and perhaps look at Petaluma or Windsor and see how they structured their care and maintenance planting instructions. But it seems that we need, again, just like looking at tree removal requests, we need to defer to some expertise. And I know we have other sources. The Ecology Center could probably be a good source for this. But I'm just, since you're our city arborist, it seems like I'd like to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to help with that, provide insight, whatever. I don't think we need necessarily to reinvent the wheel, because as you said, there's some really good work out there, formats that we can use and look at without starting from scratch. That's a little bit daunting, but let somebody else be daunted and we can take advantage of that. So yeah, I'm happy to weigh in wherever I'm needed.
Are you going to comment? John and I actually had a discussion about this when we were working on the master tree list. And also, just as a reminder, I've looked at all the surrounding municipalities' tree ordinances, and I would not recommend going with what they're doing per se. But like Sunset Magazine has a tree planting guide. I think it would be pretty simple to put together. However, I'm not an arborist, so.
If I could just add a couple. I'll take this opportunity to introduce myself too. So my name's Dave Jans. I'm the new Parks and Recreation Director. I've only been here a couple of weeks, but had the chance to meet most of you, at least say hello on an informal basis. And just to clarify, we'll be working on a transition plan with staff. I think you have two options in front of you. Regardless, the urban tree canopy study and the tree inventory is moving forward, and so you'll have the opportunity in November. Ish, depending on the timing here, but to come together in a joint meeting. If I'm hearing correctly, that would be a full meeting, so an opportunity for the entire commission to be part of a joint meeting with the other commissions. If there's items of interest that are on this list that you would like to at least explore, from my perspective, there's no harm in forming an ad hoc. Doesn't mean you have to accomplish any set number of these between now and November, but it'd give you an opportunity to meet with staff, to meet with Mr. Meserve, to start talking through these items of what's of interest, what looks like it's accomplishable, what are things that maybe we should defer until we have an urban management study fully in front of us. We can also talk about things of should it be this commission versus other commissions, which areas of staff should be driving some of these initiatives forward. So maybe the opportunity to set the table and bring in some more information at that November meeting. But also we'll be talking a little bit about your work plan later on in the meeting, and so that may be an opportunity to have more informed information for this ad hoc as we put together our work plan in total when we have our December meeting. So just a couple of paths for you to consider tonight.
I agree with that. So I would say my recommendation would be if anyone has an appetite for anything on this list to reach out to Ashley and Cathy and let them know that you will be kind of owning that until the November meeting or December meeting, and we can just start tracking that there are some pieces that we can work on together. And then if there is a need for a true ad hoc, we can identify that at a later date. Does that sound good?
Yeah, just to be clear, the commission needs to recognize an ad hoc if you guys want to work on it. So, if you guys are interested in doing that between now and the November meeting, then we need to set up an ad hoc to formally recognize your work as commissioners on that. Or you can take between now and November, receive the tree inventory report, and then set up your ad hocs then. And, per what Director Jans had mentioned, we will be talking about a work plan later tonight, so there's totally possible that the work that we're talking about here is going to dovetail into that as well. So my recommendation personally would probably be to wait until we discuss the work plan, and then this can all be part of one larger conversation about what goals PROS has for the year and how that aligns with council goals. So I think that might be a little bit cleaner and might kind of bring all of this into like one big picture.
Okay, great. We'll close this item, move on to item 4.3, comments from the Parks and Recreation Open Space Commission on the draft conservation and open space general plan element. Hand it over to Jennifer Gates for a staff report.
All right, thank you, Chair. So, 23 pages of information. Some places it's light, some places it's heavy. There's probably some missing things, but I hope that you all had an opportunity to read the document. So my goal tonight is to get PROS' comments. So if there's certain things that PROS wants to discuss specifically that maybe you guys don't agree, or if you accept. So when I hear a comment from somebody, I'm just giving you the ground rules. If I hear a comment from somebody, I'm probably going to make a note, make edits, make notes, things like that. When I hear discussion, that means I'm hearing maybe a differing opinion or that we want to discuss it more, and so I'll hold back on my notes. And because I want at the end of the day to have notes from PROS as a whole, your commission. If you as an individual don't agree with what PROS as a whole is basically commenting on, because we're not going to vote on this, we're just providing notes. You can always submit comments as an individual to staff, and then we'll put them with the rest of the comments. What we're doing right now, and I sent you all emails about this, is I'm taking comments on the elements, and I am going to combine all the comments from everybody that participates, the commissions and the general plan task force, and put it into one document to then provide to our consultant. They will then return that document back to us, and we'll have one complete general plan with all the elements that you can see all together and the EIR at the same time. So that is the goal. So right now we have, I have sent you guys links also to the general plan website, and there's multiple elements that are available for your review. You're more than welcome to review those, send us comments. There is a deadline for all the other elements because they've been available for probably about 4 months now for some of them. And so those ones are due the end of next week. The utilities and then the future elements, we'll set a different deadline for those. Let's see, what else did I want to say? Right now, time-wise, we're looking at summer, around summer, for the actual adoption. We kicked off the EIR process, the first part of a CEQA document, or California Environmental Quality Act document, which we're doing a project EIR, means that we do a scoping meeting first. So we do the notice, and then we are going to do a scoping meeting. That is on Monday. I did change the location, given some historic interest, and so we're now going to have that meeting at the Vintage House at 5:30 on Monday. And again, this is focused not on the general plan itself, not the document, but rather the EIR and what aspects of the environment that we will be studying through this process. So with that, conservation and open space element. What I'm going to do is I am going, you should be all able to see it on your screen. If you can't, I can make it larger. And so what I'll do is I'll basically just go section by section on the screen. And then when we get to the goals themselves, so like goal 1, I'll say any comments on the policies in goal 1. And so if you have comments on any of those policies, I'll ask you to reference that policy and what's your question or clarifications that are asking, or any additions that you want to add to it. And then we'll do the same thing for the actions under each goal. But in this case, in the introduction and background, it's a lot of text. So some people have edits and comments, so I just need you to be specific on what paragraph and what line or sentence. So with that, let's kick it off. Any questions? Okay. All right, introduction. Are there any comments, questions, thoughts, feelings? So again, this is one element out of many. This one's only focused on open space and parks. Greenways, it does have a touch on climate that you'll see here in a second. All right, contents. These are the summary of the goals. So each goal has a main sentence that you'll see in the document and then a number of policies and actions. This section right here under contents is a summary of what you will see in goal 1, let's say, for example, which is about biological resources. What I have gotten comments about changes here, and I've gotten comments on inside the actual goals. At the end of the day, we'll edit these summaries based on whatever that final version is. So with this, are there any questions, comments, thoughts, feelings about the goals? Starting with number 1, the biological resources and what it says. Any questions? Two, which is about soil and mineral resources. Number 3 is about air quality and greenhouse gases. 4 is about climate change and adaptation and resiliency. 5 is on hydrology and water quality.
A question on that. There's a lot of talk about recharging
Aquifers.
groundwater. Is that included?
Yes, it is included, and I'll be adding a little bit more about it. And we actually, Director Berger and I met with GSA. I throw the W in for water. But we met with them yesterday and that agency will be going through this document as well and providing their comments to make sure it's consistent with the overall state goals and our specific regional goals for groundwater. All right, visual and scenic resources. Agricultural resources. And open space.
Do we have a need for a further or a deeper inventory of our open spaces?
So, I am trying really hard to understand all of the properties that we own and any kind of conservation easement or any restrictions on them, to then identify whether they are open space, I'm using the quotes, or parks. And the reason why I say open space is I had a long conversation with my ad hoc for the general plan yesterday from Planning Commission about what is open space and how is that different than parks and parkland, and what they see as open space is literally open space. But my comment is sometimes our parks are open space because they're not programmed, right? So sometimes our parks are kind of a combination. We have open space preserves like the one behind us here, or behind me, on Montini Preserve, which has a conservation as open space. Typically, those allow no construction on their sites. So we have specific restrictions here about what can be built, how tall, etc. So that's typically what I would consider an open space. I'll let the Parks Director, though, get into those because that's his profession, not mine. But we have identified in here, you'll see later on, to do a parks and open space master plan and inventory. So that is in there. But I will, as part of this general plan, have a map with all of those identified. What's a park for us? What's an open space? What has a conservation easement? Things like that. So I'm still working on it.
Will that include information on the difference between the 3 designations, or however many designations, and how protected the land is in each designation?
I'll have whether they're restricted and the easement aspect in there. And in some cases, we are still trying to figure out a couple of city-owned properties. But we will definitely have all the parks and the trails. So we have the one trail. Okay. Whoops, oops. Sorry, there was another goal. Parks, recreation, and greenways. All right, number 1. It's focused on biological resource. What they're doing in these documents is if there's specific things that we want to define, we're doing it in the red on the right-hand side. So if there's specific things, like there is a definition of open space that you'll see in the open space section. But this is where typically we would define that. So any questions, thoughts, feelings on any of the policies around biological resources? So this is our habitats, our riparian environments. I am not aware of us having these mapped, so I cannot provide you a map of these. I just know of one off the top of my head, but we have some.
I guess, first of all, Jennifer, I thank you. I don't know how you juggle all those issues you have to manage. It's really appreciated. I think I sent my individual comment in to you, but I don't know if my commissioners have. Under the biological resources, what's missing for me is any reference to the tree canopy and the need for a management study. We have a wonderful address on the need for a master parks plan and the greenway, green and blue way, but it seems that, given the city's stated goal is that trees canopy needs to be expanded, I was surprised that there's no reference in this goal or these policies for the goal to, I know I'm sounding a little obsessive about this, but I'm puzzled why we're not seeing in a 20-year period a reference to an urban canopy management plan.
The urban forestry management plan it's just not in the biology section. It's in another section, another goal, and we'll get there. And I'll point it out when we get there.
Looks like there's mention of it in 1D.
I'm pardon?
1D of the document,
Oh.
COS 1D, talks about the urban forestry management plan.
Good.
Policies, incentives, penalties.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't in the policies, it was in the actions, but it's also in another goal.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes?
Just a question, will there be a map coming, or is it just this is a general hope that we restore and preserve this?
So with every project that comes forward, we analyze habitat and riparian environments and things like that on what we call native lands. So an example of this is a long time ago, back when the subdivision was created, they did an environmental assessment and they identified a wetland. And then that wetland was separated from the development as a whole and kept. That's the one that a lot of people are talking about. I think they call it St. Francis. Another way that we would do it in a future development that is a native land is on Napa Road. There's 2 lots for sale right now. One lot has a development on it. It's right next to the creek. Basically, the creek separates the 2 lots. That lot has never been touched. And so we would require a habitat study to be performed. And then that way we can determine whether or not we would have impacts to a native habitat, a native species, whether that is an animal or a plant. Okay. Any other action questions, thoughts? A question came up on another group that I'll just tell you about the fact that we have a really long action item for 1G. And what you'll see in some cases, we have a lot of specifics, is because this is our mitigation measure. Typically, we pull this information and use that for compliance with the general plan, but also if we are doing a tree removal, it really should be out of the nesting season. And if it is during the nesting season, they should be checking to make sure that there's no birds nesting. And so these are the requirements that are around tree removals.
I had a question.
Sure.
I was looking at the buffers and what's the neighborhood impact for and related to the scope for the biologist for those?
You're talking about the buffer here on my bird nest?
Yes.
So it's usually about the development itself and where the tree is being removed.
Mm-hmm.
And so the buffer is more about no construction around that perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there's a tree and it's got a nest in it, they have to mark out that buffer and no construction activities can occur in that space. That's what that buffer is about. So it's not necessarily about the neighborhood or what's going on with your neighbor's property. It's more just about where construction activities can occur during a development. Is that the standard buffer?
I think it is.
That's what I thought.
And does this apply to individual tree removal that we're approving or not approving?
Technically, it should. It's good. It's good tree practice.
So then, should we include on our arborist recommendations when we get the reports, when the timeline would be that you recommend the removal? Because then it's leaving it up to us, and we have to define what is feasible versus not feasible. So if it's impacting a resident's, quality of life or living in their home, that is a not feasible waiting outside of February to August.
So it's February to August is the season. And so best case, don't do it then. But reality is development happens, trees get removed, things happen. It's during the nesting season. You just need to make sure that there's nothing there. And then if there is, then you have to wait until that nest has been vacated. Then you can proceed with the removal of that tree.
And there's a couple of options there too. One of the options is to have your ducks in a row, go in early, take away all the foliage that is encourages nesting without doing the tree removal. And then when it comes time to do the tree removal, you can get the tree removal done inside the nesting season, and typically there's no conflict with a nesting bird, because during the tree removal season, which ends February 1st, you can go in and clear cut those trees and take all the foliage out of them. And then when your project's ready to go in June, you can go in and finish the hard job, which is removing the bulk of the tree. So there's a couple of options to getting that done properly.
So another
This-
question over here. So this says shall be, where am I? Shall retain a qualified biologist. So does that apply to our street tree or our tree removals individually? And that's another cost that a homeowner.
No, so thank you for pointing that out.
It says, if not feasible to do the removal outside of the nesting season, February 1st to August 31st. I saw the same thing. So it says shall. So it does really affect tree removal permits, this section.
And my question was that if you have a buffer and because we're talking about Sonoma and it's an urban environment and the houses are maybe 100 feet apart if they're lucky, your neighbor's red-tailed hawk might be in their tree. Does that affect you taking down your tree?
There's rules about that, and sometimes a red-tailed hawk that is in an adjacent area can stop a construction project. Just because it's not in the development, that's not always a deal buster, but that can happen too. Yeah, but it has to be identified outside of the construction project, and there's not people there to identify it 150 feet away. They're going to be identifying nests that are in the construction project, not going into people's adjacent property and doing that.
Right, but if they've hired a biologist to comply with this, then that's why I asked about the scope for the biologist. Is it the 300-foot buffer, or the 500-foot buffer if it's that red-tailed hawk, or
And the buffers are dependent sometimes on the species identified. So construction is a lot of times allowed to go within the buffer. The buffers are general and the biologist can shrink the buffer. But when you're doing your survey, you're not going onto private property adjacent to do the survey. You could look and see that there's a red-tailed nest right there on the adjacent tree, and that could be part of your survey. But that you're not programmed to look at those trees during the survey, just the trees that are in the property limits of the development or the construction project.
that seems kind of backwards. Oh, sorry. Because if you're looking for a buffer, I understand, you have a construction area, but I was just wondering how you dealt with nearby nests or whatever, because that's a effect on the biology.
I put a note. We can look into it. All right, moving on to H and I. H is about tree preservation efforts and getting trained up, staff training on that. Also looking at biological habitats on or immediately adjacent to a project site. Here we are. That's where it is. So I think that's the difference. When you're talking about the buffer is really pertaining to a nest is present. When we're talking about an actual study, they'll set the parameters based on the habitat type of how far they'll go beyond that. But they do not have, typically these individuals will not have access to neighboring properties. So it'll have to be seen from public right of way. Okay. Any questions before I move on to goal 2 about biology? Okay. Not a lot here. Mineral and soil resources. Both policies and actions. Any comments, thoughts? Okay. Goal 3, air quality and greenhouse gases. I did get a lot of comments from Climate Action on this section, so don't feel like you need to if you don't want to. Unless this is of a personal interest. Okay. Sure.
Oops, God.
I'm here all day.
And maybe this is the wrong area to ask it in, but let's see. When you're talking about climate action and natural resources, California is concerned with dark skies, and the use of uplighting with lights in trees has become more and more common, and it upsets the biological habitat of insects and the night critters. And I wondered if we are addressing that, because it's a serious problem, especially I've lived in Sonoma a long time, almost as long as dirt, and the amount of uplighting has increased dramatically to where I have a neighbor that looks like they are actually a Walmart.
Yes, and that is on our planning commission's ordinance list.
Okay.
To do, but I think biology is a good place to add it so that we have the policy background to actually implement and defend our doing an ordinance around it. So that is of an interest to the community for sure.
In a public area, not in a private residential.
No, it'd be private.
It's private too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's, when you look at the maps, it really upsets, like you can imagine your owl is swooping around, that it upsets their feeding, their nesting, all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah, migratory bird patterns are really heavily affected. I used to work in coastal communities, and the Coastal Commission was very particular about the impact on migratory birds and lights. We are working on that. We have a lighting restriction ordinance for private and public, and but it hasn't been touched in a long time, and technology has changed, i.e. the LEDs have come into play since our ordinance was written. So if you think about it, when you're driving in that really great LED front lights on those cars and you're blinded for a second, so that's the impact. Right. Air quality, any more around air quality policies? Actions? All right, goal number 4 is on climate change adaptation and resiliency. So there's a lot that we're doing in this space throughout the county and the state. I would say mostly it's been focused on sea level rise and the impacts on development around sea level rise. But for us, it's going to be more around extreme heat and the effects on our natural environment. And then also we're looking at our creeks. So a lot of these are just to work on reducing our climate impacts and incorporate all the good works that are going on around us. And then promoting energy efficiency. And then here's more about trees, reducing our urban heat island. And then here are the actions for this goal. Climate resiliency and climate adaptation is actually a requirement of the state to put into our general plan. Okay. Goal number 5 is hydrology and water quality. So this is going to your question around groundwater. This is where we're going to be putting more information about aquifer recharge and other aspects of our groundwater use. The city doesn't have too many wells left being used by areas that we have brought into the city, and we are working with those that do to get onto our city's system. All right, and then actions around that.
Quick question.
Sure.
Does the city have a program by which they pay people to take out their lawn?
We do not pay them to take out their lawn, but we have a grant called Cash for Turf. Not cash for grass anymore. It's cash for turf.
Okay, great.
So we're working with Ashley and our Climate Action Commission to kind of rebrand it and get it going again. Whoops, that was bad on me. Okay. And actions that we're doing. All right. Goal number 6, visual and scenic resources. This may be more in your guys' interest. So, a clarifying aspect that we talked about at the task force meeting was the city has a hillside, but we do not have any ridges. The only ridge that we have is the cemetery / overlook, which we are working to change to be a park. Instead of being called public, we're going to change its designation under land use to an actual park. So other than that ridge, we do not actually have any ridges. But we do have the ability to still have policies within our documents to help guide staff to be able to respond to what goes on in the county. So my department is notified anytime that there is a development proposal adjacent to us. And then we also get notified when other agencies, departments in the county, or agencies apply for grants. And then they'll sometimes reach out to us and say, can you support a letter of support for this grant? So if it's in our documents and our policies or general plan, I'll write a letter of support. So I've written a letter of support for 8th Street's acquisition of the right-of-way for the trail continuation, a letter of support to the land trust to get a grant to purchase more of the ridgeline over here on Sonoma Mountain. So those are the types of reasons why we put in policies associated with within our region, I would say, within our valley. We do not have any designated scenic highways in our community. State Route 12 is ineligible. And then we also have an eligible scenic corridor along Sonoma Highway. But they are not actually listed. And it's very difficult to be listed. But we still take into consideration that they are eligible when doing CEQA. So I'm going to move on, unless anybody wants to stop me, to actions. Don't have a lot right now. I'll be adding more. All right. Any thoughts, feelings, comments? All right. Agricultural resources, to promote and conserve agricultural resources. And there's a number of policies and actions in this, so we'll focus on the policies first.
I have a question.
Sure.
I've heard people say that they should put trees along the bike path between 2nd and 4th Street. And I wanted to comment that I think that trees near vineyards or the patch, which are both two of our main agricultural resources in the city of Sonoma, would be detrimental. I don't know how you plan to deal with that.
So that's part of the reason why we're doing that urban canopy and the inventory is to identify what we have. The canopy study will actually identify good places to plant trees as part of their study. It's going to look at empty spaces. It's going to look at the fact that we also now have a very high fire zone designation for the northern half of our city, and the impacts of that in tree plantings. And then it'll also look at the path, the trail. We identified the trail as a priority conservation area, which should be adopted hopefully next week by the Bay Area governments, and that will allow us to apply for funding for trees. But that trail and then a couple other creeks we've identified for urban canopy tree placement, as well as recreation. We would not want to plant trees that would affect or cause harm to anything that's existing, whether that's the trail itself or a vineyard or a historic landscape. Stop talking to you, you'll understand what I'm saying. So those are the types of things we'll take into consideration as we start planting.
Thank you.
Could I just follow up with that? The Cool Corridors project of the Climate Action Commission, I know I talked with Travis Wagner some time ago about ability to plant trees along the bike path in the state park, and that would require negotiation with the state park. Do you know what would be involved if we wanted to start such a discussion?
We would need to discuss with them, and also I would need to have a better understanding of what their if it's a historic landscape to them or not, because that has implications, especially depending on where that funding is coming from. And so I agree, though, that trail needs some trees or some kind of shade aspects, and so that it would be a partnership, which is what we're doing with them. You know, activating the Toscana Hotel, we've created a specific agreement with them. It's called a joint powers agreement, and it would be something that we would do as well.
I would like to make a comment that it's a wetland between 1st Street West and General Vallejo's driveway.
All right. The other aspect of agricultural resources that we are working on currently is Jacob and my department is working on an urban agriculture ordinance, and so it's going to be really specific to how do we allow for more urban ag operations within our residential zones. So we recently had a woman get a use permit to have a horticulture. She actually has created a flower. I don't know the specifics, a specific type of flower. And she grows them in her backyard, and she wants to sell them at farmers markets, and she wants to have a stand in front of her house that also sells them. And so we do allow that under our code right now, but it needs a little bit more work. The code does. So, but there's interest out there, so we're going to look at that more. All right, goal number 8, open space. Acquire and protect important open space in and around Sonoma. So this is the definition under our government code section, the state government code, and how they define open space. It does include outdoor recreation and public health and safety. Outdoor recreation could be just a trail. It doesn't necessarily mean a playground. So this is really specific to open space, and I want to say in here was a tie to the parks master plan, but we'll see. The parks master plan is in the next section, but I couldn't remember if it included open space there or here. But I'll make note in my brain and write it in a second. So really focusing right here on the open space in and around Sonoma. There's been some ideas about and questions being raised around Shockin Hill and the last Montini lot adjacent to our Montini Preserve. So just a little background. Montini Preserve, if you were around then, I did a little research, but it's a while ago that I did the research. It seemed to have been purchased by Sonoma County Open Space District. And then there was a conservation easement put on it with, I think, the land trust and them, and then us, and then we took ownership. It's a lot of agreements that I was reading through. But we did not purchase it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so it's always about a collaboration. And so when you see in here, it's not going to say the city is going to go purchase something. It's the city is going to collaborate, coordinate, and work with. Doesn't mean that we'll assume control or bring it with. Montini Preserve actually is not within our city boundaries. So it doesn't necessarily mean that either. And then in some cases, we get land dedicated to us. So I'm going to forget the name. The community garden over on
Sonoma Garden Park.
Thank you. Sonoma Garden Park was a donation. So that was not us purchasing.
Are any of our current open spaces leased or, dedicated to us for a subset of time, like 50 years or something, where that's coming up in the next general plan, or no?
Not that I am aware of. I think we own every single park that we consider ours, as well as the open spaces, our ownership. That's what I was double checking to see. I have some lots that the city owns that aren't designated as parks or open space right now. So those are the ones I'm really doing research on. Mm-hmm.
In general, when the language is being written about open space, is the concept of preservation meant to mean perpetual preservation, like permanent?
As open space.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We can change that to conservation, but preservation, conservation are sometimes interchangeable.
Right, I just mean protection.
Yes.
Perpetual protection. Thank you.
It doesn't necessarily mean that there'll be a conservation easement, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Okay. right, and here are the actions. So in our land use map and designation, we have a park designation, and then we have an open space overlay. So I just wanted to clarify that. We have some areas that have this overlay on top of them. I think including this site here. Other than Montini, I think it actually comes down here. But I'll have to look into the specifics of it. But I did want to say that you won't necessarily see a specific color for open space. It's actually, a hatch. I think, Jess, you sent it. I sent that back to you.
But that's for an overlay.
That is an overlay, but it's a land use type. And so when you, in here where we're talking about minimize development as feasible in all areas designated as open space by the land use element, when we designate open space, it's a hatch. It's not its own use type. It's an overlay, which means there's an underlying use type. Could be public, and then we've attached an open space on top of it.
So, for example, in the case of the Overlook Trail, at the moment, it's public facility with an open space overlay.
That is correct.
So I think one thing that would be helpful, at least for me, and maybe the rest, educating the public, is how much is that overlay helpful in the absence of an easement, say, or something more. I don't know if it's substantial enough. It still hasn't been clear to me, because underneath the designation is public facility. So
which has lots of uses. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry?
Which has a lot of different types of uses.
Exactly. So it's sort of divergent purposes.
Okay. Yeah, we can clarify. Transfer of development rights, in case you were wondering what that is, it's more of a planning term. It's where you have specific rights. Let's say, I don't know what we would do here in Sonoma, to be honest, so I was going to look for like communities. I think this is a leftover action from a prior general plan. Transfer of development rights actually came about in New York City, and it was a movement of, especially with historic sites, to move its development ability to another site. So there's a historic train station there, and they wanted to develop it over it, and so that's when the development rights transferred to another site, and so they could build basically twice as much. So whatever that leftover, so let's say you could have 5 stories, but you really only could do 2, so those extra 3 goes to another site. For open space, it would be more like you can't develop 5,000 square feet, so that 5,000 square feet would go and be added in addition to whatever would be allowed on another site. So that's where I'm going with, I don't know how that would work here in Sonoma, like a program like that. So that was something I was just going to look into, see if maybe Healdsburg or Cathy had something similar. And if they don't, and I can't figure it out, it's going away. Because I don't want anything in here that's really not plausible. All right, Parks, Recreation, Greenways. This is goal number 9.
I have a question.
Sure.
How many acres of open space do we have in the city of Sonoma?
It's around 9.
So we're low.
Minimum is 5. We have 9 acres per 1,000 population. We're actually over. I was going to do a new calculation just to make sure, but we did it last year, or double check somebody else's calculation, but I wanted to do our own. The reason why it's so large is probably because of the Montini Preserve and the state park, which do count. So a lot in here about expanding, maintaining, identifying our parks and recreation needs, and also, of course, our promoting. And then last would be the actions in this section, and then there it is, open space. I knew it. Develop and adopt a comprehensive parks and recreation master plan to promote and support our future parks, open space, recreation development, and planning decisions. It's pretty specific. I'm going to have the new director weigh in on that level of specificity, and see if anything's missing or if we want to generalize it a little bit. But this is standard things that you would find in a master plan.
Ask a question.
Sure.
How often do you work with Sonoma Land Trust versus Ag and Open Space? Does the city?
I personally rarely work with them just because I'm more in current development unless they have a specific request, or parks actually. What's the parks department? Is it parks for the county? Regional parks? I work with regional parks more than anything, and mostly just because of implementation of the active transportation plan in our neighboring parts. And then their request for grant assistance. The other departments I don't think I've worked with.
The only reason I bring it up is because there are occasions when Ag and Open Space demurs, as in the Overlook situation. When I spoke to Ag and Open Space about an easement, they weren't interested, and the Sonoma Land Trust was very interested and ready to roll.
Mm-hmm.
So just keeping that in mind.
I mean, I've had a conversation with Sonoma Land Trust, but I'm waiting for them to come to me more. So I don't have opportunities for them. If they identify opportunities, then I recommend that they come talk to us about those opportunities that they may see. But I haven't talked to them recently.
What I was actually meaning is if you find that you are looking for an easement per se or something like that, with Ag and Open Space, and they demur, then Sonoma Land Trust is another good
resource.
Yep.
Okay. All right, the last two. The only thing missing that I was going to add is the fact that we did submit for the priority conservation areas, and there was no reference to that because it was completely brand new to me this year. And so I had quickly jumped on that opportunity and identified those areas so that we could potentially apply for grants. Very competitive grants, probably won't get them, but at least we could try. So we'll add a little bit more in there about that opportunity as well. All right. All right. That concludes this element. Like we said, if there's any individual comments on any of the elements, please send them our way. So it could go to jgates@sonomacity.org, or it can go to generalplan@sonomacity.org.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. This
You're
is
welcome.
amazing. Call for any public comment. All right, I think we can close out this item.
So the deadline is September 18th, is Friday, I think. Next Friday? Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys.
Item 4.4, receive an update on plaza work to include the plaza topographical survey and the plaza irrigation project with Ashley.
I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Mike Berger.
Hello, and thank you once again, Jennifer, for bringing those two items tonight. That was very informative. Tonight, we have an agenda item before the commission to discuss receiving an update on the plaza work to include the plaza topographical survey and the plaza irrigation project upcoming. First, the plaza topographical survey in January. As you may know, city staff advertised a request for proposals for a topo survey of the plaza. After receiving multiple competitive proposals, the city awarded the contract to BKF Engineering. The topo survey was recently completed at the end of July. Key deliverables for this work were a survey of the Plaza Park, including all features. The topo survey was a critical first step in identifying issues with drainage. The topo survey will be included as part of the irrigation request for proposal, RFP, which staff is currently working on, and I can transition to that RFP right now. The Plaza Irrigation Project, the second item we're updating you on tonight. Current scope for the RFP is geared towards retaining a design professional to evaluate the existing irrigation system and recommend replacements, upgrades to the system components. These include adequate power water supply, proper coverage and watering zones for turf, trees, flowers, shrubs areas, controller assemblies, backflow prevention, mainline lateral piping, valves and associated wiring, sprinkler assemblies and schedules, operation and maintenance schedules and methods, and evaluation of weather-based and other technologies to reduce water consumption and improve water use efficiency. The scope of the work also includes providing a preliminary and intermediate designs. Additionally, key deliverables of this includes final PS&E, plan specifications, and estimate package that will include a final bid set of project plans to complete the work. Bid phase support for the construction element of this project will also be included as part of the RFP and the design award. So there's a little update for what's two tasks that are one's completed and one is forthcoming for work in the plaza. And as part of this work, Dave Jans has been basically given the plaza irrigation RFP, and he's currently working on that to push that out, and he can give a current update on what's happening on it this week.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. So this is a project that's been in the works for some time. As you may or may not know, we've had drainage issues. We understand that the irrigation system, as I understand it, is 70 plus years old. So certainly due to be looked at opportunities to be watering more efficiently, more effectively. This is a document that will feed directly into what we're hoping to create as an overall plaza master maintenance plan, so that we can be more proactive about how we take care of the plaza rather than reactive to issues. Also working closely with Mr. Meserve to make sure that the new system that goes into place will be properly watering all the various tree species we have in there. As we know, currently some are probably receiving more water they should in some areas, others maybe not getting enough. So it'll be a holistic approach to taking a look at how we take care of the plaza, and one tool that will feed into the master plan. So this is high on our list to get out. So we are we're working on the scope. We want to bring our general topics to you of what we're honing in on that scope. So if you have any comments, we're happy to receive that feedback. But we are looking to get that RFP out the door in short order and get this project underway.
I have a question. Is there a reason why both of the water features were not included in either of the RFPs? Just figured that while we're doing plaza maintenance, there's some water element in irrigation to that, and they do need some updating.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's an excellent comment and something we're currently taking a look at as I'm quickly coming up to speed. I know that the two systems are connected, and so we'll see if that's something we can add into the scope. Because I think having the water features and the overall irrigation, we'll see if that fits within our current budget. But we're diving into how those two systems interact.
I had a question about how much technology is expected to measure soil moisture in different locations to maximize the efficiency of the new system instead of relying on people making those determinations.
Yeah, and I'll take an initial stab at that. I think that's part of why we're doing the study, is we want to see. We know that we aren't currently utilizing all of the most current technologies, and so this is an opportunity to see where we can be more efficient and potentially not have as much individual manpower on monitoring that versus utilizing the technology that's in front of us. So those will be some of the asks that we'll have as part of the proposal.
And this is really welcome. I think this was triggered about last year when I lost one of the 2 American elm trees on the plaza because of the watering was improperly overwatering that tree and causing was it mushroom growth, John, or a disease that looked like it was going to have to come down, but fortunately it was saved. So it's great.
I think Director Gates has a comment or several.
One, because I know one of the commissioners is interested in this. So as part of the plaza, first steps in our department, we are going to be kicking off the RFP for the cultural landscape survey because we do recognize that the plaza is a National Historic Landmark. And so we need to understand what is those contributing aspects of our historic park. And so a cultural landscape survey will also look at the built and natural environment. So as much as it can, identify when specific trees and things like that were planted. And depending on how much funding we have, it may just be an identification. If we have more funding, then it'll be a full landscape survey with actual recommendations on how to do restoration and preservation of our resources. So I just wanted to add that.
Any further public comment or further discussion by the commission?
Just thank you for your comments, and we'll keep you updated as we get ready to move that proposal out the door.
Thank you, Director Jans. The item, moving on to 4.5, discussion and direction regarding the formation of an ad hoc to develop a work plan for the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Committee for 2026. Handing it over to Ashley Cotter.
So I'm just going to get this started, and then I'm going to transfer this over to Director Jans because he's going to be taking over this committee. And so essentially what the goal of this is just to discuss how to develop a work plan, if that's something you guys are interested in. And this is kind of what I mentioned earlier about the, setting up ad hocs to discuss maintenance and planting, is if you can program that into your work plan, then it's the way I look at it, and Director Jans will have some more input on this because he's done these before in other agencies. But it essentially gives you a map of what projects you guys are supposed to be working on throughout the year. So instead of kind of coming up with projects midway, it kind of pre-programs your work. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Director Jans because he has way more experience in this field than I do, and I'm sure you guys will come up with some great ideas.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. So the intent tonight is really to see if there's an interest amongst the commission in moving forward with forming an ad hoc committee. Typically, how these work plans work with other commissions in the city, and some experience I've had working on the others, is annually or biannually, typically the city council will set their overarching goals, and being a council appointed commission, within their goals, there's typically areas that trickle down to you specifically as commissioners and also to us in that same department that serves as a liaison to your commission. And so whether you're aware or not, right now in the city council's goals, one of their top 5s is Parks and Recreation, which is very exciting. think a really unique opportunity. Hasn't always been a focal point of the council over the years. So the fact that they've made an interest means that they have then action items that they would like to see accomplished at the staff and commission level. So typically there's the overarching goals, and then within that there's some specific. So Parks and Recreation is the overarching goals, and then there's specific items within there that the council would like to see staff working collaboratively with the commission to accomplish. And so what we're asking for tonight, is if there is an interest in creating a work plan. I think they can be extremely beneficial. We always, and when I say we, collectively as a commission, will always have items to respond to in the community, whether that's tree permits, interested items that come up from community members or you as commissioners that of course can make it on the agenda, but it gives us an opportunity to frame what our annual work looks like. And so gives you an opportunity to take out of those council goals areas that you want to focus on a commission, working either holistically as a commission at your joint meetings or in between those meetings as ad hocs. So what we're hoping for this evening is an interest, if there is an interest in the work plan, and if so, the ask is if there's members that are willing to join an ad hoc committee here this evening to work on a draft work plan, which we would then bring back to this commission, ideally in December. The one caveat to that I'll point out is the city council typically revisits their goals in January. Not uncommon for their goals, or at least portions of their goals, to carry over from one year to the next. So don't expect, in looking at the Parks and Recreation goals, there will be a lot that will take more than now and January to accomplish. So I think it would be fine for us to come up with our draft work plan, knowing that's a fluid document. It's something that can change throughout the year as interests arise or city council goals change. So that's a general overview. The intent is we could work as an ad hoc, really hash out some of the details, bring it back to the commission, put it up in front of the rest of the commission, discuss whether that's the actual areas that we'd like to focus on, and adopt either in December or at your first meeting in January. So I know we're talking at a high level now. Again, I'm familiar with these. Every organization, every commission looks at it a little bit differently. So happy to answer any questions or go into more detail if you have specific questions.
I think it'd be great to see some examples if you have some to share.
I'd be happy to share those with the commission. I don't have any at my fingertips to put in front of you, but I'm happy to share either with ad hoc or can send it to the entire commission, other examples that either other commissions within our city have done or other Parks and Recreation commissions have put together.
And how many people are you looking to assist for the ad hoc?
I have to get accustomed to our number of 7, so up to 3.
Anyone from the commission actively interested?
I'm volunteering.
Thank you.
I'm interested, although the next 6 weeks I'm real busy with grapes. But after that,
I'm happy to do it. I know that that's probably half the amount of time that we have, given it's harvest. So I guess we can join Director Jans and assist with that if that works.
That would be fantastic. And if it helps, typically how it would work, I'll send you information, give you some time to digest it. We'll then get together and really start hashing it out. Knowing, again, this is a draft. We'll then have a more robust conversation when we get together as a group. And we'll work to be as efficient and not take up too much of your time. But I think will be a good opportunity to dive into those city council goals and see where we want to go as a commission. So thank you.
Any public comment? Any further discussion from the commission? All right, we will form an ad hoc committee and close the item. Moving on to 4.6, receive an update regarding the budget for CIP P-8 Olson Park improvements. Handing it over to Ashley Cotter. I know there's been some changes here.
Thank you, Commissioner Izetta. So what we have here, we were anticipating the 90% plan set. Unfortunately, we weren't able to receive these in time for them to be published. So instead, we are bringing the available budget, what we've come together with for available funds. And I just want to highlight that all of our construction costs are currently estimated. We are going to get an updated opinion of probable costs with the 90% plan set, which we haven't received yet. So I just want to highlight that all of these are currently estimates, and even still, we have no idea what the bids are going to come in at. So I just want to preface this by saying that these are estimated, and that at the end of the day, we're not going to know the true cost of this project until it goes out to bid and we get some bids from contractors. So I just want to, a little disclaimer there. But anyway, this project has been in our capital improvement project or improvement plan since 21-22. With the adoption of this year's fiscal budget, the current adopted project budget is about $574,000. And this also takes into consideration the task order. So I just want to be really clear, this is the funds that we have available for construction, as it already takes into account that the task order for Ann's design services is fully encumbered. That's how I functioned the budget. So this is what's available for construction. Contingency. Contingency is money that we reserve for change orders for unforeseen conditions in the field, or last minute add items, and construction management. So we've been working with Land Culture for the final plan specifications and estimates. As part of this work, we got an original cost opinion in 2023, which is about $610,000. It was a little over budget. We didn't have enough money to cover it, but that current construction cost estimate with all the additional costs, contingency, construction management, etc. And so we worked on with Land Culture on getting an updated cost opinion by removing some of those things, and we're able to bring it down to an estimated construction cost of about $534,000, and this includes 15% contingency. And then we went over what contingency is. So that our current estimated total project cost with construction contingency, which is estimated at about 15%, and construction management of about $40,000, is about $574,000. There's like a $3 differential right now between what our current project budget is and what our current estimated is. And again, these are estimates. If, for example, the bids come in somewhat higher, we'll have to take an amendment to council to reappropriate some more money. So the funding for this right now is kind of a mix between 304, which is what our general fund dollars are, Parks Measure M, and Quimby funds.
I know I have brought this up ad nauseum. How are we approaching when we get the 90% plan if there is amendments we would like to see to accommodate public comment, or the sand versus wood chips versus the bouncy material that has been brought up by me many times?
So the ad hoc for the 90% plan set is still in place, even though we haven't received the 90% plan set. So I think, and if Director Chance agrees, we would meet to discuss the ad hoc, with the ad hoc to discuss the 90% plan set, and then kind of chart a path forward from there. And there's a possibility of setting up another meeting to go over this, to go over the fall protection material. That's something that we're open to, just as long as we're in terms of setting expectations about when we go to construction, that everyone is kind of on the same page, that would delay construction until spring. That's okay within this fiscal year. And the beauty of capital improvement project funds is that once you roll that money into that specific fund, it's not like general fund dollars. It's not like use it or lose it. So that's kind of nice. We just have to make sure we roll it so that we have an accurate view of what our funding is. And so I think that could be a good way to approach it. But we would probably, it would be a good idea to start with ad hoc, I would think. At least because we formed it, we're going to talk about it, and we'd be good to get a good set of eyes on it. And then if we wanted to move forward in a different direction, we could definitely decide that at that point.
I would agree. I think getting the ad hoc together to take a look at what the 90% plans and make sure it's incorporated your comments to date. And then if we feel there's a need to either have another opportunity for public comment or bringing it back to the commission as a whole, we can either, from a timeline perspective, see if that makes sense in December, or we can call a special meeting to discuss that item specifically.
Thank you. And she is committed to by next week? for the 90%?
It should, I'm anticipating it by the end of this week, but I do owe her an email just to check in. Unfortunately, she came down with a pretty bad flu bug, which is going around start of school, so she wasn't able to meet her deadline, which, you know, it happens. So I'm hoping this week, if not this week, then early next week. She has not updated us, but I also owe her an email on that as well.
I have a comment. Being that we have two fantastic commissioners on the ad hoc, I'm withdrawing from the ad hoc.
Thank you.
Any public comment or anyone on the commission? Any other questions or comments?
The Land Pass is doing the MacArthur or Fifth Street. Are they doing the, no, that's, I mean, they're doing Olson, but are they also doing the concept for this MacArthur?
For Sonoma Oaks
Yeah,
or
what?
Fifth or MacArthur?
MacArthur and Fifth.
Yeah, I believe they have an active, and I will have to confirm that, but I believe they have an active task order for, I believe it's the Fifth Street West Park. Yes, they do. We have not done anything with it, but they do have an active contract, and funding is available for them to do work on a possible concept.
And do they have a budget?
Well, they have
Ceiling that we're suggesting, or?
we have, I mean, part of our like mandated Quimby fund reporting is kind of estimating project costs for some neighborhood parks. The Fifth Street West Park was part of that annual reporting. And with regard to their work, I believe they have about, I want to say $19,000 remaining on their task order for that ballpark. Like I said, I can confirm the amounts, but they do have funding available to move forward with the concept design. We just have not moved forward with that. And I think at this point, now we have our fantastic Parks and Rec director. We can kind of free up a little bit of bandwidth to possibly move forward on that. Maybe pending a master parks plan, I'm not super sure, but with regard to funding and availability, contractually, they can work on it, and they do have funding.
I have an unrelated question. Are we expecting to have a student member replace Jared? Because I thought his contributions were very valuable.
They have not received any applications from students yet. I asked Rebecca about that today. So we can't appoint anybody until there's some people, and that's typically done every September. The youth members rotate in September.
And then how does it work for Commissioner Wellender's position?
That's a question for Rebecca. She'll have to bring it to council, because that's an at-large position that is appointed by council. Sorry if I stepped in on anybody else.
Not at all. I happened to talk to Rebecca
Okay,
today as well, and so spot on with both of them. That was actually part of my staff updates here. So no, Cathy's spot on. So if there are any youth members that you're interested in, or know that might be interested, I should say, now would be a great time for them to apply. We're going to be reaching out to the local high schools and some of the clubs to see if we can drum up some interest there for Commissioner Wellender's as an at-large member. And so same thing, they're looking for applications kind of on as soon as possible, because then the council will be able to deliberate and make that determination at their next available meeting based on when those applications come in. So if you know any candidates that would like to join us on the commission, now is a great time. The applications are on the city website. We can send you that link as a follow-up so you can forward on to individuals, but currently recruiting for both positions.
And do they need to be appointed by the same person?
Typically, yes, but as I understand it, Commissioner Wellender was an at-large member, and so that would be appointed by the council as a whole.
Did we close out 4.6?
No, he just. I'm going to go back and we already asked for any public comment and close out the item for 4.6. Were there any, moving on to item number 5, were there any Parks, Recreation, Open Space Commission member reports and comments before we move on to the staff comments? Sorry.
I've got just a quick question, and I want to say welcome to you, Dave, officially, and I hope you'll let us know if there's anything you need in any way we can support you. My question is for Mike. I'm curious to know that now that we have this updated master tree list, how often you refer to it in any sort of city tree planting, or do you? Because I know that the district list basically disappeared and never was being used. I just don't know if you, since we know that that list is trees specified as most likely to survive and thrive in the next 50 to 100 years. There you go, Ashley.
You're clarifying, just a clarifying question. You're talking about the master tree list that pros work together on, right? So that actually, in terms of city planted trees, Olson Park has an incredible amount of trees that is going to be going in. That's part of the goal to create more shade is by planting trees. And one of the things we did was made sure that Anne with Land Culture had the master tree list, and we're expecting some, I believe we're expecting some updates on the trees that were originally in the 50% plan set, because she received the master list after we received the 50% plan set. And then we also had Mr. Reserve review it as well. So with our city projects, we're definitely utilizing that list. That is our first stop, for sure.
Yeah, I'd just add an extra welcome to Dave Johns for joining us. We've been looking forward to having a parks director for some time, and it's really welcome. We look forward to working with you in any way that can be helpful. And does that mean then that we'll continue to see Ashley and Cathy, but Mike, we won't be sharing so many evenings with you? Is that correct, or?
My understanding is Dave's just going to take over.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
No, we'll be here to support. That's for sure.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Good. And the other thing I wondered if, well, I also want to thank Jennifer and John for participating in these meetings and being so helpful with your announcements and support. What about Measure M money? Aren't we in the 7th or 8th year of a 10-year plan? And I'm just wondering if there's going to be a push coming up in a year or so to renew that, and in the development of a master plan or anything else that we should be thinking proactively about. Do we want to see that renewed, or how can we start thinking about that?
Yeah, and I can't give any specifics at this point, but I know I'm scheduled to meet with the county and regional parks coming up here. I know it's on their mind right as the timeline's coming up, so I'll have more information to share most likely at our December meeting. But that was something that I saw at same timeline, and so I know we're scheduled to meet and talk about many topics, but that's an item of interest and something we'll be discussing.
Good. Thank you.
And also just quickly answer that one too. We did just submit our annual Measure M report, and so part of that also on their end was highlighting what we've done over the last few years with Measure M, how Measure M has been impactful, and it's been, because I've been attending the Measure M Citizen Oversight Committee meetings in the interim, and so it's definitely a huge topic, and they are definitely collecting as much information as possible to make a very strong argument to renew the measure. And so that is the information that I've been able to gather from after attending these Measure M Citizen Oversight Committee meetings, because that's definitely top of mind for the people that sit on these oversight committee meetings as well. So I just went to one of the more recent ones, so I just thought I'd give you that background on that as well.
Would you be able to give us where we are at the next meeting in terms of what we've spent so far and where it's gone? I mean, just sort of an overview, and then what's left?
Of our Measure M money?
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Great.
I do want to preface that we've been banking a lot of it. We have a recurring project, just to give you some highlights on it right now. We have been doing our recurring project up on the SOT Montini fire suppression. So that gets about $35,000 a year with a contract with Sonoma Ecology Center. That's actually, I think it was approved for a little bit more. This last year, we just entered into a 3-year contract with them at the last the June council meeting. So that's one, and that's recurring every single year. One of the big things we've been doing is banking money for Folsom Park and also Depot Park Civils, which we have not gone to construction yet for. But as you can see, looking at the budgets that we have projected, projects like these are very expensive. It's not even a whole new park, it's just kind of rehabbing an existing park. And so that's why it becomes kind of imperative to bank these to pull off larger capital improvement projects. But I can give you a more detailed overview of our current Measure M.
Finally, what progress, where are we with the 2022 parks maintenance grid that we developed for all the parks is where there's deferred maintenance and, you know, that little grid had all the parks and the check marks for different. Are some of those being addressed, or where are we with that project?
So are you referring to the parks assessment that we did?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, Olson Park is the one that's in the queue to address the needs at that park.
No,
And
yeah, but the other parks, Mike, where there's the whole grid and there's a number of X's. In fact,
the second
we picked
park,
Olson Park because it was one
the
of the
second park that we had was Sonoma Oaks. We have a CIP for that. We did public outreach about a year and a half ago. And when we had staff challenges, both Olson and Sonoma Oaks kind of took a back burner. Sonoma Oaks hasn't been restarted yet. It will get restarted. And then we, you know, those two parks alone are keeping us busy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so we will be looking at the rest of that. Dave has already gotten a report. He's looked at it, I'm assuming, because I gave it to him one of the first weeks. And basically, we'll be assessing and taking a look at that. I mean, we continually do upgrades, maintenance to parks just with operations budget.
Mm-hmm.
So some of those things are already being addressed. However, the two CIP projects are the two that I just mentioned.
Good, thanks.
I've got to say, I really appreciate the update on the tree removal at the Little League field. That was nice information to receive.
I just had one quick comment. I think as I'm reflecting on the ways in which we're now utilizing the arborist reports and the general plan and everything that's starting to tie together, I think there's an opportunity to templatize and formalize the ways in which we are responding to the tree removal requests and making sure that we're checking off all of the boxes in a templatized fashion of this is the health, this is our recommendation, whether it's not just tree removal, whether it's a size of a plant, here's the list that we give them, and then the option to pay in lieu, and then additionally, like, if it's on you or whoever, and this is no dig to you, I think you're doing incredible work, but did we check for the bird's nests and those sorts of things where we're really checking off all the boxes of the general plan as well as our own tree removal committee pieces and making it very similar to the type of report that Ashley just provided on Olson Park, where we really templatize this and give every single person the same report back and say whether it's not applicable or whatever it is. But I think right now we're very anecdotal about it, which is wonderful because it's giving information to these residents. But I do think we need to start moving to a place where this is true policy. That's just my thoughts. Any other comments or announcements from the commission members?
I think I'd like to ask Jennifer one last question. Can you comment on how the city has been affected by the availability of federal funding and grants in the current administration? Even generally speaking?
I would just call it the status is on hold. So
things are being pushed down the road, kind of?
if the funding was already allocated and already stated in a prior budget, then it's on, and they're pushing on those projects. I've heard a couple around the energy and things like that, but the writing is on the wall for my commissions, as far as like climate action, the writing's on the wall that there's a pullback on all of that type of funding. And so what those organizations are really pushing is let's spend the money we have and let's get these things going, and then on hold until we really understand what's going to happen. And that includes my funding that I wanted to go after for historic stuff. And so I think the things that I'm involved in mostly is on hold. We aren't relying heavily as a city on federal funds. So we really weren't affected. So if you listen to the budget workshop, Prop D did a good job of trying to talk about where our funding revenue streams are really coming from. We are not really relying on that as a revenue source historically. So we'll see.
Thank you very much.
Any other staff comments or announcements?
I think we have a couple over here. I'll start with two brief ones. Commissioner Tolbert brought it up, but just wanted to give you a quick update on the tree work and removal that's happening at the Hughes Little League field. That's a county-led project. Started that project on Monday. They're making good progress. Looks like they're on track to finish hopefully by end of day tomorrow. Staff's been coordinating. We do have a bocce tournament that starts tomorrow, and we have the farmers market on Friday. So working with a tree company out there to navigate that space. But thankfully they did have the bathrooms and playground offline, but otherwise the pathway and the rest of the park has remained open. We're hopeful we'll get the bathrooms reopened tomorrow, but we did bring out portable toilets in the meantime. But as soon as that work is done, we're working closely. We're in communication with the Little League and the county on a replanting plan. I know they're hoping to do that in the near future. And we're finalizing some of the location to make sure these trees, it's the proper kind of tree in the proper location, so we don't run into the same issue down the road. So depending on the location, we'll either be utilizing that master tree list or highly recommending that they use that master tree list depending on where it lands on the property. But we'll keep you updated on the replanting opportunity, maybe an opportunity to get out as volunteers within the community. And on that same note, we do have a couple volunteer opportunities coming up at our local cemeteries. So if you're interested in helping doing a cleanup at all, on Saturday, September 20th, we're going to be working on Valley Cemetery from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. On October 25th, we'll be focusing on the Mountain Cemetery. And if I can scroll down, in early November 8th, we'll be working on the Veterans Cemetery. So we'll be publicizing that, and I'll send that to you all as commissioners as well. And this is my last update, as we've kind of alluded to it. But you'll start to get a lot more communication from me as we move forward. Big shoes to fill with Cathy, Ashley, and Mike here, and they're not going away completely. Certainly we'll be bringing them in, and we'll be very instrumental in making sure that we keep these projects moving forward. But in addition to working with you all to highlight parks, recreation, open space in our community, part of my role is to open up some bandwidth for the Public Works team to focus on their duties at hand. So you'll start to see me a lot more involved with this commission, which I'm really looking forward to. But you'll still see Mike, Ashley, and Cathy on important topics. So with that, I'll turn it over to Director Berger if he has some more updates.
Okay, just two quick updates. One of the updates I wanted to make is that we are planning on doing an Arbor Day event this year and doing tree planting in the fall. And we will be using the tree list as a starting point. The second update I wanted to bring up tonight, the Sonoma Valley GSA, Groundwater Sustainability Advisory Committee came up, Agency Advisory Committee came up. Just for your information, there is a meeting next Tuesday, 9/16, from 3 to 5:30 at Valley of the Moon Water District, I believe on Bay Street. And that's, if you need any more information on that, I can get it to you if you'd be interested in attending and wanted to get more information on what the GSA is all about. And that's it as far as staff updates.
Next meeting is December 10th.
I don't think we have any more public comment areas, but if we are good, we'll move to adjourn this meeting. It is 8:34.